Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, so today I am showing you another former World Championship winning Pokemon trading card game deck. A couple of days ago, we looked at the 2011 deck, David Cohen's Magnezone Emboar. Today, we are looking at Steven Silvestro's world-winning deck from 2009, a particular favourite of mine, because it's Beedrill. And for newer players out there, how many of you knew that once upon a time, Beedrill won the World Championships? Now, this deck really revolved around two Beedrills. The one from Rising Rivals had an amazing ability that once during your turn you got to search your deck for a grass Pokemon and just put it into your hand, which really accelerated searching out all of your Pokemon. I should mention at this stage before we go any further that back then we had Broken Time Space, which was like Forest of Giant Plants but for every type of Pokemon. And here you would get this Beedrill set up quickly so you could search out more grass Pokemon so that you could go for your main attacking Beedrill, which was this one from Great Encounters. And really here, there's only one attack we're actually looking at. It's Band Attack. 30 damage times the number of Beedrill you have in play. You get all 4 Beedrill out, you're hitting 120 damage for 1 energy. In 2017, that's pretty good. In 2009, that was utterly phenomenal. Now, this Beedrill did have a second attack, but it was way too expensive. And the Rising Rivals Beedrill did have Needle Shock. If you hadn't used Needle Shock the previous turn, 30 damage plus paralysis plus poison. But I'm going to show you the list at the end of the video. You'll see how few energy this deck played. It really was all about Band Attack. Now, the Kakuna wasn't really anything special, but it did have a nice attack for 1 grass energy, where if you flipped the heads, you got to search for a Beedrill and evolve Kakuna. But you really didn't want to be using that if you could at all help it. Similarly, the Weedle from Great Encounters had a call for family attack, but if you're using this, something's going wrong. The other main Pokemon in this deck was Luxray GL Level X, and if you've been watching some of my more history-focused videos lately, I did the Rising Rivals Top 10, link in the description, and I did a video about SP Pokemon, link in the description, both of which featured Luxray heavily. Luxray was amazing, but honestly, it was for the Poké Power bright look. And of course free retreat. Now a level X, the level really isn't important here. And level X's were basically a break evolution, but you could only evolve when you were in the active, and it wasn't counted as an evolution Pokemon, which was very important with Machamp running around. You evolve into Luxray, bring a Pokemon active, free retreat, and then you get to smash using your Beedrill. And every other Pokemon in the deck really was just to help you out. Claydol was amazing draw support with the ability to just put 1 or 2 cards on the bottom of your deck and draw until you've got 6 in your hand. Azalf was very important with its Time Walk ability. It basically allowed you to look at your prize cards, and if you had a Pokemon in your prizes that you didn't want in your prizes, you could switch it for any card in your hand. Really handy because, of course, we're using Broken Time Space to evolve up all of our Pokemon as fast as we can. Now, we are playing Rare Candy, but we're also playing, 4 Kakuna, 4 Weedle here. We really are trying to evolve up. We don't want any piece of the Beedrill line prized. Azalf was really handy to make sure that didn't happen. Unknown G was guard, and kind of like the recent Klefki, you got to turn that Pokemon into a Pokemon tool, and then what it would allow you to do is ignore any effects of attacks other than damage. Really, this here was useful for a number of things, but the most prevalent at the time was Machamp. Machamp's takeout attack for 1 energy got an instant KO on any basic Pokemon, like for instance your Luxray GL Level X, so Unknown G would be really useful here to stop that happening. Also, Crobat G, it's got free retreat, but really here, Crobat G was just for dropping extra damage down. And then you could use Poker Turn to reuse Crobat G. It was in pretty much every deck at the time, whether SP or not. It was crazy good. And Chatot here, free retreat, and for 0 energy, you get to refresh your hand. It actually does exactly what Wick does nowadays, which is kind of funny. Well, only for you, not for your opponent. So I suppose call it a one-sided Wick. And they really were the Pokemon, ladies and gentlemen. Rising Rivals Beedrill to set up. Attack with Great Encounters Beedrill, because the Rising Rivals one's still up to the amount of damage you did. And then Luxray, you could attack with it, but largely it was just there for the Bright Look ability. Everything else, all the other Pokemon, just to help you set up. Moving into the trainers here, there are a few that don't look terribly familiar, so it's worth my while going through them. We've got Roseanne's Research. It allows you to search your deck for up to 2 in any combination of basic energy and basic Pokemon. The amount of energy you were playing in this deck was very, very low. This was really nice for helping you get energy, but it was also pretty nice just to search out any Pokemon you might be needing. BB Search was a really good supporter card. It allowed you to switch a card in your hand for a Pokemon in your deck. And remember here, you've got things like Claydol, so you wouldn't even necessarily need to search for a Beedrill. You could search for a Claydol, because the beautiful thing about this deck is it kind of runs itself. Between Claydol and the Rising Rivals Beedrill, you didn't need to do that much searching, so BBs, you just go and search for one Claydol and you're basically off and running. Weirdly, the deck played Cyrus's Conspiracy, despite not being an SP deck. You would search for a basic energy, and remember you're not playing many, so you need to search them out. A Team Galactic's trainer card, and that could be things like Energy Gain or Poker Turn, which were important in this deck. Also SP Radar. And a supporter card, maybe a BB's for next turn, or a Roseanne's, or whatever. You play Cynthia's Feelings in this deck, or at least Silvestro did, and this is kind of a little bit like Halla. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 4 cards, but if you had a Pokemon KO'd in the previous turn, you take 8. Such consistency. Means if your opponent takes a nice early prize, you can use that to try and get your Claydol and your Beedrill and really start rolling. And the fact that this deck played Rare Candy isn't terribly exciting. It's a Stage 2 deck, of course it played Rare Candy. The exciting thing is that back then you didn't have to wait a turn. You could just go Weedle, Rare Candy, Beedrill. And I know Stage 2 decks at the moment are a bit slow, but when you can Rare Candy turn 1 and you've got Broken Time Space, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, this deck, you could set up 2 or 3 Beedrill in one turn fairly easily if you got the right cards. Poker Turn just allows you to pick up one of your SP Pokemon. You could use it to reuse Crobat's Flash Bite, or you could use it to pick up your Luxray, so you could then put Luxray back down, ready to re-evolve it in the future to get one more Bright Look. A lot of Beedrill decks were around, ladies and gentlemen. Not all of them won the World Championships. One of the things that really set Steven Silvestro's apart, the use of Luxray to drag Pokemon into the active. And there was some energy gain here. Again, you could use energy gain to attack with Luxray, which was quite important, especially when you were playing against stuff like Gyarados, for instance, where this would be a really, really good attacker. And because you were playing multi-energy in this deck, which was basically like a rainbow energy, but it didn't put a damage counter down, and it had to be the only special energy on your Pokemon. You could even attack with Crobat G using energy gain and this, if you so wished. There was also SP Radar in here, which is BB Search, but an item card rather than a supporter, and only for SP Pokemon. But like I've said, getting your Crobat and your Luxray were very important. Warp Point was just an old version of Escape Rope, which is, it's a switch, or it can force your opponent to put up a Pokemon they don't want to. Night Maintenance was just an old version of Super Rod to allow you to recover your energy and Pokemon. And remember, you're playing few energy here, and you need really to try and get all 4 of your Beedrill out here. So using Night Maintenance to get them back, super important. And Luxray Ball here. Oh my goodness, Luxray Ball rocked. Luxray Ball allowed you to search for any Pokemon. The kicker was that if you had Luxray Ball in your discard pile, you couldn't play it. You could play as many as you liked, but you could only use 1 per game. So basically back then, every deck just played 1 Luxray Ball because it was great. Couldn't search for a level X, so you couldn't grab your Luxray GL level X, but you could get that with SP Radar, so it didn't really matter. And then, as I've said, ladies and gentlemen, you would play Broken Time Space, which was, pun intended, broken. This is what the list looked like as a whole. It's a great list. It's a consistent list. And if any of you want to be playing old formats, this is a super fun deck to use. Other big decks at the time, you had SP decks, and a little while after you would get Heart Gold Soul Silver, which brought Double Colorless back and Garchomp, but you generally be one-hitting all of them with Beedrill. Gyarados was a big deck, and this is where Crobat G really comes in, because of course Gyarados had 130 HP and you were really maxing out at 120. You could have played Expert Bout in this deck, but giving up 2 prizes wasn't worth it. Crobat G was a lot better because it then just allowed you to do that extra 10 damage to get the one-hit KO on Gyarados. Similarly, Machamp had 130 HP, so you needed to be able here to just hit 130. That's why Crobat G had to be played in this deck, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to get a one-hit KO on Machamp, you wouldn't be able to get a one-hit KO on Gyarados, and that would be extremely upsetting. This wasn't the most powerful deck in the format, but hitting so hard for 1 energy in a deck where you can really cheat evolution to a Broken Time Space and Rare Candy, and this really is a masterful list, ladies and gentlemen. One of my favourite World's Winning decks ever, which is why I chose to make a video about it. But of course, I need some feedback from you guys. Do you like these videos? Do you want more of them? Should I stop? Let me know in the comments. Go nuts. Be nice. And if there's a particular World's Winning deck you'd like me to have a look at, well, comment section. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., then go and check out patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But the most important thing, as always, by far, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.